Hello Reddit and YouTube. Today's maybe quick video in reply to Sentinel on Reddit. He was doing his first drive hook. The basis is you have a hook, you build in the nail or the spike at the end so you can just drive it right into the wall. Got a couple different components. You've got your drawing and tapering. I think you were using round stock 10 mil. I've got 3/8, which is comparable. Anyway, we're going to go with taper to a point. We're going to keep round section throughout, so I'll taper it, and then I'll round it back up into the cone shape. From there, we'll try to take the one heat into your decorative curl and your main hook. Stage 2, hopefully 2, maybe 3 heats by here. I'm going to show you a different way than just bending it over and truing it up. There'll be 2 different ways to make us a nice 90 back here. The first way I'll show you, I'll have this at about a 45 when I first turn this, maybe a little steeper, but not a 90. I don't want 90 yet. I'll turn it over, I'll lay the back end where I want that flat 90 on the anvil, and I'll upset down into the stock, hammering back in this direction, squishing this down and giving us a little bit of shoulder here. Then we can true up this shape, give us a nice flatter section to hammer against, so it's not round, it doesn't want to bend around. And then we can draw it to the point. Maybe 5-6 heats, I don't know. I should have played this one first to find out. Anyway, that's the idea. The second way will be just to do a 90 bend, and then we'll take, and on the profile, if we're looking here, your 90 goes back this way, and you're looking head on at your piece, you can just smash this direction, flattening it out. And I know it doesn't make sense, you don't have much of a reference here, but when you turn it to the side, you will have swollen up this area right here by flattening out your round corner. You can smush it out. And it'll get a little thinner here, and then the section of your hook, and I'll show both ways. I'll make 2 hooks, I guess. And one's just a little prettier, one can kind of maintain the stock size, maintain your dimension. The other, doesn't make any difference, just gives you a little flatter area to go against, but doesn't maintain section. You'll get a little thinner at the end. So, I'll try to get started here. We've got a couple shorter sections, and I never really want to wind up with too little, but I'm afraid I got too much. Get started with this one and see what we can do. Always, I've got a little scrap pile that we should all keep, and I can always dig through it and find a little section of something that we can use. My electric blower, the 100-year-old Champion, is down for the count today. I've got to replace a carbon brush inside it, so I'll be using the other Champion and just do it the old way, manually. I noticed you had a pretty shallow forge. I couldn't get a good look at it. I only watched the video once or twice, and I was looking more at the form and the hammering than the forge itself. But do try to make sure you have a base and you can get a nice mound going so you get some good concentrated heat. This one's been going a couple minutes, maybe an hour or so. I was making a couple other belt buckles for a friend. Give me just a second here, we'll be up to heat. So first step, we're going to go ahead and draw out and taper this point that will then, on the next heat, curve over into the hook and the decorative side. After that, I'll be able to cut the section off and turn it around, and I'll be holding it from the hook end to work on the other piece. That part might be a little hit and miss for me because I'm not sure how much stock I want to cut off, because you can really stretch material out. I can normally take 1/2 to 3/4 inch of a piece of 1/4 inch square and draw it into about a 2.5 to 3 inch long nail. So you get a lot of movement if you want a nice thin taper, because if you have a big chunky spike, it's going to be harder to drive into, say, like barn oak or something like that if you're putting one of these hooks in a barn. Good hot fire. I'm using the Hoppy 3-pound. We're talking about some of this in your post. I prefer a bit of a heavier hammer. I know some do and some don't. It's personal preference in my opinion. That's what I've got. Try to make sure you're going opposing blows, hit, rotate 45, hit, and keep going. It looked like you were. Just try to remember to lift that hammer high, concentrate on what you're doing, and get a good follow-through blow on it. Starting with the point, and then I'll draw back slightly, working up and down the stock, trying to keep an even taper as I go. I don't want to go too much in one section, because I might overdo it. I want a decently thin tip, so I can put that little decorative curl at the end. If it's too chunky, it won't want to curl very well. Now, I'm starting to get cold, so I'm planishing down. I'm not trying to move a whole lot of metal, just shine it up, get nice even faces. Not trying to move metal here, just trying to clean it up so I keep a nice even section and see where my lines are. Because the next heat will be to take these corners off and go from square to octagonal and then round out. Try to do that all in this next heat. Probably could have started a piece a little longer. Not that hot, but keep me from doing it in the future. Of course, when working with a thin taper like that, I'll try to take that tip and stick it into the coal at the far back end of my forge heat. That way I don't burn it off as I'm trying to heat up the rest of the material, the thicker section back towards the original. It's all about fire control and making sure you're not overdoing it. You're talking to the camera too much and setting things on fire. I'm usually pretty good about that. I'm going to take and square off these other corners. Lightening up my blows as I get towards the end. So I don't want to smash it flat or make a little diamond shape. Now with it mostly cut off, I'm just going to go ahead and pick up the speed, a little bit more power, start rounding up. Now you can keep working down the stock. You can get prettier lines and nice clean circles, a nice clean section if you just keep working the corners off. For this, I'm just going to go with a quick spin. Doesn't have to be perfect. I just don't want it square. Again, once it's cold, I'm not trying to move metal. I'm just trying to clean off any of those flat spots. And that doesn't take a whole lot of force. Just nice, easy bounce. And always try to remember too, when you're working these tapers, I'm raising and lowering the back end, my hand here, to try to keep flat contact all the way around. Hammer will mirror that angle, so I get nice even tapers instead of bending the piece every time, letting my hand float up. You'll tend to get little curves back and forth, but try to keep it flat. Normally I'd try to done that real quick and then both the curves, but it's all right. We got time. I'm in no hurry today. My fire's been going a little while today, so I'll occasionally water it back behind where I'm burning, because I am just working with stoker, mineral coal, and that fire will spread back in there and start burning up more than I want to. But I got a nice little coke base built up. I'm trying to get an even heat again without burning the tip off. Hopefully I'm not yelling at you guys. It's been a while since I made a video. My amazing wife has given birth to my first son, second child, Kane. He's just about a month old now, and him and his sister and my wife are at the zoo. I've got a little free time to work. All right, so I'm going to use two different hammers here. I'm going to use my heavier hammer for the thicker section of stock to make this end. This bigger piece of material that has to bend, I'll use the heavier hammer for that, but I'll use that second. First, I will go to a lighter hammer. This is maybe a pound and a half, if that. Just a little ball peen. I just want something lightweight because I'm going to work there at the tip to put this decorative curl that you've got on there. And I think you've done it. I'm trying to remember your video. Start out, say this is the edge of your anvil. Start out with a piece hanging over. And just lightly make this first curl right here out in the air. Don't bend it here at the edge, just make it out in the air, and then you can stick it out further where you've got this curl going. And make your second bend back here. So once you've got half your circle here and half your circle here, you can crush it all together in one nice even roll. I'm pretty sure you were doing that over your anvil, and that's good. It looked good. Didn't work. Get this off here just so it's not distracting. Hopefully I didn't set the piece on fire. Got a nice even heat. I'm going to start with that decorative curl first. Taking it out over the edge. Second, curl back into myself. Controlling how much roll I want on there. Trying to keep the roll even as I can. I don't want it too tight. What I can do is I'll just quench the tip off a little bit. A bigger, heavier hammer here. I'll be able to hammer a little bit on that curl now that it's colder. And that'll transfer the energy to the hotter piece without crushing too much of that thin section. I'm going to come back over here and hammer back down in, bracing against my leg. Got a decent radius. Screw it up slightly. It could be a little prettier, but we're getting cold. I think that's good. This isn't what we're worried about anyway. You can make a nice even hook. What we're trying to get is our method for squaring up the end and that drive point. From here, I want maybe again the length of this hook for stock to drive with. That way I can get the hammer to drive it into the wall without trying to hammer underneath my hook, if that makes sense. If I start back here too quick, I can't hammer onto it to drive it in. So I wanted it out about this far. So I want that curve to start back here somewhere. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I'll go ahead and put a mark where I want to cut my stock. So if I'm going to have a hammer's width to nail it in with, I'm going to cut it back about here. That's a maybe an inch, inch and a quarter. And that might actually be a little too long. That's a decent amount of stock. I'll be able to draw a nice long spike out of that. So go ahead and put a mark on it where I want to cut it. Good. Back in the fire. Heat up. Cut off. 45. Upset back into itself. It's always good to plan ahead in your head where the piece is going to need to be, where my tools need to be, what tools I need, so when I pull out, I'm ready to go. The heat's where I want it to be, and I don't waste any time trying to find something or move something around. I will need my tongs. I should probably move up a size, but these should work. I'll need my hot cut. I like the bigger hammer for this one, so I'll put this hammer up for now. Got everything I need out and ready. Take a minute to get that heat in the fresh section of the stock. So what I'm going to do is, once I've bent this over at a 45 or a little past a 45, just not a 90, I'm going to then hammer in this direction right to the end. I can heat up right here nice and hot and just quench this end off where I'm going to be striking it. And what that'll do is that'll lay this shoulder down flat. And it'll form a nice little shoulder for me to then make a square over here. So it's nice and flat. Doesn't always look better, especially if you're just learning how to do it. But when you try to drive a rounded corner into something, it's always going to want to wiggle a little bit. So if you can give yourself a nice 90, a nice flat spot to hammer into, you'll drive more straight into your piece or into the wall or whatever you're mounting to. We're hot enough to cut. Look out, set my mark. A little cold. It's all right. Looked like you were just getting started, so you didn't have a hardy cut yet. Even if you don't have a nice big chunky piece of stock to use, what you can do is, you put this back in and let it stay hot while I talk and ramble on here. Sorry about that, the camera had a malfunction. So what I was saying was that if you don't have a big chunky piece of stock, like a piece of jackhammer bit, something like that, you can always use something flat, just like a piece of leaf spring, put it in diagonally into your Hardy. So draw a nice little taper down so where it fits, get it hot, leave it flat up top, put it down in that Hardy, and while it's hot, drive it down. That'll form shoulders on either side, and then you can bring it back out, heat, cut the tip to however you want it, and then you got a nice little Hardy tool that'll stay stuck in the diagonal and still give you something where you can have both your hands free and you don't have to, use that top tool, which is fine to use a top tool. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you want both hands to be able to hold your stock steadier. Anyway, that's just a quick way you can make a nice, quick little Hardy tool without having to mess with a big chunky piece of stock you may or may not have. Get back to the work here. Done with that, so I can take that out. The next step is going to be turning the 45 plus, then hammering back down into myself. I want a really, really good heat. I might do a quick bend on it, then put it back in the heat so I get it just where I want it. And then from there, I'll hammer down. When I'm doing this maneuver, when I'm hammering down like this, I'm going to lose a lot of that height going back into this shoulder set. So sometimes I'll start with a little more than I need because it'll crush down so much. And that it comes with experience, and I might not even work on this one. It might go a little too much or maybe not enough. We'll see. We get it nice and hot. I'm just holding it by the hook right now. I prefer doing it this way, getting this side done, then turning it after. And like I say, you don't need a whole lot of stock, and I think in your video you had to cut some off, and that just comes with experience, knowing how much you can draw from what stock you started with. You can draw a whole lot out of 3/8. All right, nice and hot. Just gonna bend it right over. I'm gonna bend over probably 1.5 inches here. Not quite 90, a little more than 45. But I want to heat this part right here in the bend. And I'm going to quench this top section off maybe 1 inch. I'm going to go ahead and quench some now, that'll prevent it from heating up as quick. I'm going to heat this section back up. I'm still going to have to quench that off again when I pull it back out. But this will help it from overheating in that spot, because I want the heat just in that elbow. Come back out, I'm going to face that tailpiece up in the air and drop down into it. Try to stand sideways here and see if I can give you a profile shot of what it's going to do, where it's going to drop down that corner. Nice and hot. Quench off where I don't want it to bend. Now, trying to show you what I'm doing is not working out. Problem is my hook's going to be in the way. I can't come over to the edge. So let me reheat and try this again. Not quite a 90. That's a little more than a 45 though. I had a second camera that set it up sideways to show you what this is doing, but I'll try to give you an after shot and show you where it's setting down. I will change over to a better fitting set of tongs. I don't want this piece flying up and hitting me in the face while I'm working. You really got to have a good grip because you need it to set in that spot and come right down. This tip is really hot. I don't want the heat there. come down into itself. It's curved over a little bit more than I wanted to. That's okay. And that'll set down where I wanted it to. Let me come up here and show you what I'm talking about. The piece is now set down and giving me more meat here in the corner. So it's giving me a nice piece to work with. Now I can either hammer it flat like this on either side and pull out a nice big face to use. I can square that off and clean it up, or I can just use what I've got here. I'll hammer down a little bit on the top, a little bit on the face here, true it up, try to get a nice little corner going there, and then draw the piece out. Now this doesn't look like a whole lot to work with, and I'll have to be right up against the edge of my anvil there, but that's okay. This is a lot of material. This is about 1/2 inch of material sticking out, and we'll draw that out quite a bit. Go ahead and flatten out this one little bend I got in the back side here. Not hurting anything, but it's not helping anything either, so we'll get rid of it. Sometimes it's hard to gauge how much metal you want there, and sometimes it's just it's a trial process to kind of envision how much metal you're going to need and how much it's going to set down like that. It comes and goes. The issue is if you turn over too much to hammer back down in, it'll noodle. It'll get all funny on you because you want that heat just in the corner and you only want to drive down so much. You want all that force concentrating on that macaroni elbow into a nice corner if you can get it. Got a good heat. Make sure the camera hadn't given out on me again. I gotta remember where I'm holding this. I'll bring it down here, true up my angle just a little bit, and then start drawing it out. Going back and forth, so I don't go too far in one direction. Bring it over here to the edge if I want. True up my corner a little bit. A nice flat square surface to work with. Come back while I still got some heat. Don't want to lose the piece. Always take a good grip. Getting a little cold. Do one more round here and put it back in the fire. Doing pretty good. We're getting a little out of shape. Don't want to undo that nice corner we put on there. Swap back over to my 1/4 inch tongs. I'll probably get a better grip on the tip of that hook where it got nice and small, skinny. We're getting thin, so I got to watch that heat again. Make sure I don't burn the tip off. Try to position it so the skinniest piece is sticking up and out of the fire. Because it's an awkward shape, I can't really go back and forth like I would on a nice flat section. So I'm just trying to keep consistent, even shape. Work one side, then the next, then rotate. Remember, we only had 1/2 inch worth of material there to start with. It's a little cold, got to calm down a bit. Playing this out, not trying to move a lot of metal, just clearing up my edges. We're getting a little out of shape. We'll fix that, take out any bends before I get my heat back. Because if I try to correct my bends when it's got a lot of heat in it, I'll end up smashing it. So we're already pretty good there. We're getting a little thin in one way and not the other. So I'm going to do one more round on this side, clean it up, and maybe straighten up this where it's got a nice bit of a curve. I want that gone. I want to straighten the back, curved only where the hook is. So I'll heat up a little bit of that middle section and then the rest of the hook. Then my fire a bit. Pull it in from the back. Where I've exposed some nice fresh coal. Go ahead and wet it back down again. You don't have to do a whole lot of this. I'm just really protective of my fuel. I don't have to burn off more than I need to. That's good for me. Now nearest coal's about an hour and a half away. I try about a ton at a time. Go through a little more when I don't have so many kids to watch. Take that bend out I did not like, and then finish up my taper. So I was bending over a little bit there. I was kind of hunching over, so what I did instead is I bent one knee and stuck the other one out. So I've kind of got a crouch pose. That's a little more comfortable, keeps my back from hurting at the end of the day. That's very important. Do whatever you can to not hurt at the end of the day. I think we're pretty good there. Shape's pretty nice. And that's a whole lot of length out of just that ½ inch that we left ourselves. Now I lost a little bit of stock dimension on there, flattening it out, but I'm happy with that. So I've taken it from ½ inch to 2 3/8, almost 2½ inches worth of length. And that tapers down to about an 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch point up to a just under 1/4 inch section. So there's your basic drive hook. Sorry I don't have a different colored shirt on. But, get you a nice flat surface to nail in the front. Transition's pretty decent, comes straight across. I don't think I'll need to do a second one. I can show you here. If I were to just keep hammering on the flat surface here in the face, it would stretch more of this out, and I can true up a nice 90 on the outside if I wanted it to. But this is good. I got plenty of nice flat section here to hammer into. There's plenty of space, so my hammer won't get in the way of the other piece of the hook. And hopefully that'll help you out. If there's anything you're confused on, or if you want tips on anything else I can help you with, just let me know. Hopefully I have some more videos coming up soon. Always taking requests. If people want to see something, that'd be great. I've got some plans in mind that I'd like to get started, and we'll see what happens. I got 2 more shows this year, and then it's all free time until the spring, I guess. So anyway, Wesley with Black Flag Forge. Here's your basic drive hook. Sorry, I lost count of the heats when the camera died. Anyway, thanks guys.